Hi there. Thanks so much for joining. I'm super excited to get this started. We'll just give everyone a minute or two to get in, and then we'll kick things off. Barbara, I thought the hat was an appropriate timepiece for the read. All right. So we're going to get things started. Um, we've got a great chapter that we're going to read for today. I worked with Barbara, who is the author of Only One, and we decided that we're going to do chapter 6, and we're going to kind of give a sneak peek. It's to give some context of the story. This takes place in the late 1700s, early 1800s. The main character's name is Laura, and we are kind of following her in her journey. It does take place in southern Georgia, so I do get to play around with a lot of different accents and different dialects. So I'm really excited that you guys have got a chance to join me, and we will dive right in. If you do have any questions or anything that you wanted to bring up, just throw it in the chat. And as soon as we are done with the chapter, I'll take some questions. And the author is actually here, so you may have questions for her, and we'll be able to answer questions maybe together. So who knows? So without further ado, let's dive right in. Chapter 6. Get married. That's it? That's my only alternative? Laura asked. She didn't know what she expected when she walked into the law offices of Bingham, Barley, and Baxter at 9 o'clock the next morning. But having Mr. Bingham offer only one solution to her dilemma, a solution that seemed far out of reach, wasn't exactly encouraging. Surely there's some ambiguity in the law. She started again, but he was already shaking his head. I'm sorry, Miss Esterhouse, but that's the only solution to your case. Of course, without appearing callous, several interested parties have approached me regarding your property, parties who are willing to pay you a fair sum for its purchase. Well, in order to determine whether their fair price is in order to determine whether their price is a fair one, I will need you to pull out my father's paperwork, the will, deeds. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I beg your pardon. The law prohibits you from engaging in any legal matter, including but not limited to the perusal of legal documents. You made that up. Certainly you aren't accusing me of being deceitful, Miss Esterhouse. As my father's sole heir, you are not his heir. A woman cannot inherit, which brings me back to your only viable alternatives. You are not his heir. A woman cannot inherit, which brings me back to your only viable alternatives. Either marry or accept one of the offers on your property. You're contradicting yourself, sir. How so, miss? If I have no voice at all in my own affairs, or the affairs of my deceased parents, I cannot entertain any offers related to the purchase of property. Yet here you sit telling me that the sale of said property is my decision to make. Ah, I see where your confusion lies, which isn't surprising since you're but a woman and ignorant of the law. I would act as your proxy in all matters legal. All you would need to do is sign a waiver, relegating all matters into my hands. And the alternative to this would be get married, at which time it would be your husband's duty to peruse your father's records and make a decision as to your future. Did you find something amusing, sir? Only your determination to act on your own behalf in matters far above your head. I think perhaps you should have chosen a profession in which humor was better suited. I consider your laughter at my circumstances as conduct unbecoming a man in your vocation. I merely find it mildly humorous that you should attempt to conduct your own legal affairs. I am hardly laughing at your circumstances. Strange, but the smile on your face appears to belie your statement, Laura said, standing to leave. If there were another attorney's office nearby, I would simply seek counsel elsewhere. But as you were my father's attorney and the only attorney around, I have no way of refuting your assessments. Still, be that as it may, I must endeavor to locate a husband, so that he may see to my affairs, since, as you say, the law doesn't allow me to do so of my own accord. Miss Esterhouse, if I might suggest, Mr. Bingham said, trying to appear more sympathetic to her plight, but failing miserably. Take one of the offers. They are most handsome, and would ensure your security into your old age, along with the revenue from your business, of course. No, thank you, Mr. Bingham, Laura said firmly. I'll be keeping the house, but I will leave you with a bit of advice. Do try to control your emotions when dealing with your clientele. Your propensity to smirk during dire state of affairs is extremely rude at best. If you don't learn to be more sympathetic, then someone somewhere, at some time, is going to take offense in a way that's not going to be pleasant. If you were a man, I may perceive a threat behind those words. But as you are a woman, I will simply write it off as a desperate hysteria and bid you a good day. With a word of advice of my own, take an offer. Surely you can see that finding a husband in the next 9 months, when you've been able to find one, when you've been unable to find one to date, is bordering on delusional. And as I stated, the offers are very handsome indeed. What I'll do is bid you a good day, Mr. Bingham, Lara said, standing and moving toward the antechamber. But in truth of the matter, a good day is not at all what I mission for you. In truth, I'm hoping that this building collapses about your ears for all the sympathy you've shown me and the assistance you've given. Without waiting for a response to her uncharacteristic tirade, she yanked open the door and stormed from the office. A moment after her departure, 3 men stepped from a side office, brows knitted and lips puckered in displeasure. Well, gentlemen, the lawyer said, you heard her. Quite a pistol, that one. A disinterested pistol. A disinterested pistol. Would you like me to try to represent the offer? Perhaps add a few more dollars as added incentive? There's not a huge rush. We'll just keep an eye open and an ear to the ground, Alfred Garamond concluded. What happens if she takes her determination for information further and seeks out alternate legal advice? She may not realize it yet, but there are more attorneys in neighboring towns who may just be willing to help her and petition to review her father's papers, if she discovers who she truly is. We'll just do what we can to keep a lid on the matter. After all, none of it will matter in 9 months. The property will be ours. All of it. Laura stood in the foyer a moment, bringing her breathing under control. When she was certain that she would not return to the office and kill the insensitive attorney, she placed her bonnet on her head, tied the laces beneath her chin, draped her woolen wrap about her shoulders, and then stomped down the stairs and out onto the boardwalk. Fighting against the tears that threatened to overwhelm her, she stood for an indecisive moment. She needed to go home, but facing the staff, all of whom were looking to her for uplifting news, wasn't a looked forward to moment. Time to think was what she needed. Time to think, if she could. She started down the boardwalk toward the shop. Her mind was in turmoil, but she forced herself to focus on where she was going, stepping gingerly to avoid slipping on the mid-morning icy patches. Maybe she could hide away in her office for a bit. She could always think at the office. Extra, extra, read all about it. President George Washington laid to rest. Laura stopped walking and turned to the newspaper boy, scanning the headline that stood out boldly in black and white. Buy a paper, miss? Only 9 coppers today, hot off the presses. Before Laura could reach into her reticule, a horde of people shoved her aside unceremoniously in order to purchase a paper honoring the celebrated general, their first president, and a true American hero. She pulled out her coppers and elbowed her way through the crowd. She slapped the coins into the vendor's hand, snatched up a paper, and elbowed her way back the way she came. By the time she reached the open boardwalk, the crowd had begun to disperse, the newspapers gone. She shook her head at the crazed display, and then continued toward the boutique, scanning the story about a man whom every American considered the father of their country, the founding father of freedom. The founding father of freedom. Still, she wondered when that freedom would extend to every American, when freedom would change the laws to reflect equality for men and women alike. After all, a woman should have the right to remain in her home after the death of a male loved one, or to sell the place and buy another home, should she so choose. To forbid a woman from possessing a home should be unlawful, not the other way around. Of course, the same sort of men who condemned her for being too smart and too tall were the same sort who wrote the laws, so was triple damned. She sighed heavily and turned the knob to the boutique. It was locked. Her brow knitted and she moved to peer through the front window. It was dark inside. She looked up the avenue and then down. Where was Mrs. Harper, and why was the boutique closed? She wondered, and then realized she'd probably read the paper and decided not to open today. She reached into her reticule and pulled out her key. Laura, honey, what are you doing out and about today? Laura turned around to meet the kindly gaze of the parishioner's wife. Hello, Mrs. Doughty. How are you this cold, blustery morning? Oh, what a precious child you are, the elder woman cooed gently. You've only just lost your dear parents, and here you are asking about my well-being. Well, I'll not answer you until you answer me first. Laura blushed and smiled down at the kindly lady. Well, despite my loss, there is much relating to my parents' affairs that must be dealt with, as well as my own. Details I can't wait until I've had time to grieve. Finding a husband, for one, she thought. It's so unfair, isn't it, dear? Mrs. Doughty exclaimed. Having to care for unpleasant details that should wait until your heart has a chance to mend. Would you feel better if I took you down the street and bought you a sinfully delicious sweetmeat? That's very kind of you, Mrs. Doughty, but I'll need to pass on your offer. Have you heard the news today, by the way? What news would that be, dearie? Former President Washington was laid to rest just 9 days prior to his family's Christmas festivities. Such a tragic loss. Oh, my, the elder woman exclaimed. He was such a simple man. I met him once, you know. No, I did not know that. Oh, indeed, yes, when he was still a general with the Continental Army. His men were passing through our hometown during the spring of 1780, I believe it was, and stopped in at our home for a hot meal. Of course, that was before my husband accepted the ministerial position here in Savannah. He was a delightful man, simply delightful. General Washington, not my husband, although I suppose I could attribute the same characteristic to my husband, but not General Washington's vocalizations. He was very soft-spoken, he was. Laura watched the tears well in the old woman's eyes. He will be sorely missed by all. Yes, I'm sure he will. Oh, how utterly despicable of me! Where has my tact gone? She exclaimed again in a dramatic fashion, wrinkled hand flying to her chest in a gesture of shocked dismay. Here I am going on about a man you've never met, when your own parents passed only recently, and your uncle and his family only a short time before also. Such wonderfully kind folks they were as well, all of them. The funeral for your parents was so beautiful, by the way. You did a fine job. Such a shame for you to have to hold a funeral so close to Christmas. Still, I'm certain you're grateful to have spent some of the holidays with them. I hope you know that I'll miss them as much as General Washington. It's okay, Mrs. Doughty, Laura assured. I took no offense, truly. You're too kind, child. What are your plans now, dearie? I haven't decided yet, Laura said, the question bringing her dire situation crashing home again. Do you have other family from whom to draw support? No. Laura shook her head and realized that, until now, she'd not thought about family, or lack thereof, merely spent her time dwelling on the possibility of losing her home. She wasn't certain how to feel about the newfound realization, but did know that she couldn't dwell on it when other, more important things needed addressing first. Oh my, I'm so terribly heartbroken for you. Well, whatever you choose. Well, whatever course you choose, make sure you keep God on your side. He'll see you through. Remember that. Oh, I will, Mrs. Doughty. The Reverend's wife looked at the boutique and then set a questioning gaze toward Laura. You're not planning to open the store today, are you, dearie? After all, you're still in mourning, as is the rest of the town. Not at all, Mrs. Doughty. Very good, then. Well, I better be off. Don't want the sweetmeats to be gone before I get there. Takes me a bit longer these days, she said with a wink. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you at Sunday service. Very good, dear. Laura watched the elderly woman walk slowly across the street, her cane tapping out a rhythm on the cobblestones. And then she turned the key, unlocked the door, and went inside. And there you have it, chapter 6. So, I made some mistakes, not gonna lie, so it'll be good for me to get into the editing part of this process and fix up some of those. But I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope it piqued your interest in terms of getting some inside information into not only the story and Lara's plight, but also in uh, in the audiobook process and how we kind of go about things. So that recording that you see is pretty much exactly how I do it. Um, I will often, if I make a mistake, just back up and re-record that line. But literally, it is just that. It is me doing a dialogue back and forth. And then from there, we go into the editing process where we do some mastering, get rid of any clicks or pops or anything, because with audiobooks, especially because it is such a long narration, your mouth can get a little dry. So sometimes you do end up with a little click or a pop that you have to kind of edit out. So we have a whole process uh, for that. So, does anybody have any questions? I see we got 4 people here, so thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you, Barbara. That was, yeah, mistakes are definitely to be expected. Um, Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna actually take some water right now. So one of the reasons I really like this book is and I'm just going to talk while people are typing. I really love the fact of getting to play with the different accents. So far, I'm about midway through recording the book, and so far I have come across London accent, two Royal British accents, male and female French accent, and then probably Barbara, keep me honest, 6 to 7 different Southern accents between male, female, age, older, younger. So it really is a lot of fun for me to kind of be in this little box by myself and and just come up with all sorts of different ways to play. And so I'm really enjoying that. So Barbara asks, how long do you think it normally takes to read a novel, narrate it? Oh, thank you. Southern is absolutely my favorite. I do enjoy doing a Southern accent. I also enjoy Scottish, British. I do have a lot of fun with that. In terms of accents, I'm not a fan of, and I don't think I personally do very well. Um, French. Being Canadian, you would think, but no. The French accent is one I actually had to do a little bit of research before recording. It but in terms of how long, to answer your question, how long it takes to read a novel, to narrate it, um, it's usually, by the time the narration side of it is done, I usually have about 20% extra that is cut out. So that's either a mistake or it's spacing because I had to take a breath or something like that. Um, so just cleaning up the spacing and all of that, there's usually about 20% of the book that, the original recording that goes away, and then the actual editing and mastering side is about another 1-to-1 ratio. So a book that's 7 hours, like only one um, no, don't worry about that. The French characters in the book, it was good practice. It was something that I normally don't get an opportunity to do, so it was good practice for me. Um, so the 7-hour book will take me between 8 to 8.5 hours of raw recording, and then it will take me another 6 to 7 hours to listen to the book in its entirety, clean up mistakes, fix the spacing, re-record any sections that I'm like, wow, I'm not even sure what I was trying to say there. So there's a re-record process if there's anything, and then typically it goes back to the author, and they may have a couple of things that they wanted to try a little different. So then we go back and forth in a dialogue and take that opportunity to clean up anything from there. All in, yeah, it's about, I would say, between 12 and 14 hours for a 7-hour book. All right. There any other questions? Anybody that wants to say hi? Anybody who wants a shout out? So, Barbara, I do have to mention that the Royal English characters, Philip I chose kind of a deeper British accent for him. And then Albert, the brother, I kind of went with a impression of Prince John from Robin Hood. So he's a little bit higher pitched. He's a little bit not necessarily effeminate, but he's quite interested, quite interesting in terms of his. So you can definitely tell there's a very big vocal difference between the two brothers. So I hope you enjoy that one. That one's a little nod. In fact, a lot of my accents and stuff I do in these sort of in audiobooks and other narration projects as well are typically impersonations of other famous, characters and things like that. So um it's my fun little nods to different genres and stuff. So he is a Merry Andrew, and that's exactly why I chose Prince John from from the Robin Hood cartoon. I was like, it was a toss up between him and the snake Ka, but I didn't like the lisping on the s's, so I kind of went a little bit more with Prince Andrew, and maybe I'll get a picture of me in the booth going "Mommy" like that. Um, so, all right. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you guys so much for joining and for being a part of this. This was our very first live stream on doing anything. I'm glad the technology worked, and we will definitely do some other things. We are actually going to be in a couple of weeks. We're going to be doing a live interview with the author Barbara Walster. So she will join me online, and we will do some questions and answers and take questions from the audience in terms of just kind of about authors and book writing and audiobooks and anything else you guys may want to know. So look forward to that, and keep an eye out. I would love it if you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is where all of the videos for Harry the voiceovers go. So some, not just live streams, but also we do different little fun projects, different acting things, tips, tricks, um, as well as any projects that we've been a part of. We'll be able to post them on our channel here. So, like and subscribe, and make sure you click the bell so you get notified of future videos. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great night.